Eric Liddell. A Scottish boy named Eric Liddell thought the greatest fun was moving fast just like the wind. He simply loved to run. He loved to sprint so very much that he began to dream of one day running on Great Britain's fine Olympic team. As he grew up, he soon became impossible to beat, for he excelled in every sport. He had the fastest feet. When playing rugby and when racing, Eric was the star. No other boys could catch him since he was the best by far. He knew that he was blessed by God at birth with special speed. He planned to use this gift to help and inspire and to lead. So when Olympic trials were held in London in July in 1923, he went. He had to try. He trained to win two races. First, the 200-meter run. He shook the other racers' hands and began before the starting gun. He took a trowel and dug two holes to get a better start, then loaned it out, for he played fair and had a generous heart. He crouched down at the starting line, exhaled, tucked his chin. He focused towards the finish line. He set his mind to win. The gun went off, the race began. He ended just as fast. That day he set a record in the 100-meter dash. His next race was a harder one, 22 meters, two 20 meters long, and though this took more stamina, he won it looking strong. So Eric was Great Britain's brightest hope to win first place. The next year at the Great World Games, he hadn't lost a race. When Eric raced the next week, though, a runner tried to pass and accidentally tripped him, knocking Eric to the grass. Though Eric now was 20 yards behind the running pack, he sprang to his feet and pumped his legs, his head thrown back. With a super burst of speed, he ran his very best and dashed across the finish line ahead of all the rest. While Eric loved to run so much, there was something he loved more. For Eric was a Christian man, and that's what he lived for. When people came to hear him talk of how he loved to run, he also took the chance to speak about God and his Son. He never took full credit for awards that he had won. He gratefully thanked God from whom all blessings would come. Just months before the games were held, he suddenly withdrew. Because his race was on Sunday, that he would not do. For Sunday was a day of God to honor him and rest. He simply would not run that day, although he was the best. As papers spread the news that Eric would no longer run, all Britain was unhappy, for they knew he would have won. And just because he made this choice in many people's eyes, he was a traitor. Eric, though, refused to compromise. The heads of Britain's team found his decision a disgrace, but asked if he'd compete in the 400-meter race. A race not held on Sunday. This at first seemed like good news, but Eric hadn't trained to run that far, and he could lose. Still, Eric said, "I'll do it." In July, of 24, he sailed across the English Channel onto France's shore. And at the opening ceremony, Eric felt so proud to walk in with the British team and see the stadium crowd. The Union Jack unfurled, the Olympic flag flew high. White pigeons were let go and thousands flew up to the sky. The cannons boomed and 60,000 fans rose and cheered. The whole crowd was expectant. Then a British lord appeared. He shook each athlete's hand but Eric's and stared at him instead. To play the game is all that matters in one life, he said. It was quite clear to Eric what the man was trying to say. He may have had a chance for gold and thrown it all away. But even if he heard those words from Britain's only king, he knew a game in life was not the most important thing. To honor God was much greater than vast wealth or fame, or winning a gold medal at the Grand Olympic Games. Now Eric knew the other runners would be hard to beat. Their times were faster than his own when each one ran his heat. Of 6 men in the finals, Eric was the shortest one. To run 400 took long legs. Would Eric be outrun? He heard the sound of bagpipes and was quite surprised to see some Scottish pipers marched in step while playing right on key, an old familiar Scottish tune to cheer their Scotsmen on. So Eric waved and smiled at them and softly hummed along. He reached to his pocket and he found inside a note, and on which a teammate had put down a favorite Bible quote. Whoever honors me, it said, I too will honor him. Then Eric knew his choice was right, regardless who'd win. The bagpipe music faded, and with growing deep suspense, the runners took their place. They were feeling tight and tense. Get ready, set. A shot rang out. There was no looking back. The runners' feet beat fast and hard against the cinder track. As Eric ran around the bend, he thought that he would see some runners out in front of him, but found, surprisingly, that he was in first place. As beads of sweat formed on his brow, he willed his body to go faster, faster, faster now. He crossed the finish line in less than 50 seconds flat, collapsed into his coach's arms, exhausted. Then he sat and heard loud cheers and clapping from the crowd who gathered there. His British coat was beaming, and soon Eric was aware that he had won and set a new Olympic record too. Against all odds, he had defeated all the runners who had once seemed so unbeatable. Now Eric felt the thrill of living his Olympic dream. It seemed a miracle. While Scotland held young Eric as its new heroic star, he chose to leave his land behind and go to live afar. In China, where he taught the Chinese college students there English, rugby, chemistry, and when they grew aware that Eric Liddell had won gold medal at the Olympic Games, they all were puzzled by this news. They wondered why he came when he had so much honor in his country back at home, and why he left it all behind for this land not his own. So during Bible study, Eric took the time to share that all the fame and honor he'd received could not compare to serving others with his life and honoring his Lord. For God and his great love and truth are what he should run toward. Now Eric did not live as long as many people do. When he was 43 years old, his life on earth was through. He'd always liked the short race, not a long, long marathon. And similarly, Eric's life did not go on and on. Now he lives with God since he has finished this life's race. And when he was a champion here, he put God in first place.